So if there was a guy who had built multiple seven-figure businesses that all operated in under 20 hours of work per week, would you be interested in what he had to say? I know I was, so I went and read all of his books. Welcome back to Read Like a Man. My name is Paige, and today we're going to be talking about all of the books written by Graham Cochrane. Graham is someone who I love because he's someone that I almost guarantee you don't know about, but who is wildly successful. And he's wildly successful, in my opinion, in all the right ways. So that means not that he has just made a butt ton of money and that's it. It's that he has made more than enough money to build the life that he wants to and feels led to build, while also maintaining a super happy and healthy marriage, while also raising two beautiful children, and while being fully committed the whole time to walking in the identity that God has for him. So I first became aware of Graham probably 10-ish years ago. He's the guy who actually started the recording revolution. At the time in like 2017, I was songwriting full time. I needed to figure out how to make mixes at home. And so I just got on YouTube and said, hey, what about this? How do you do this at home? And this guy pops up. All of his videos pops up. He's everywhere, right? And he had built the most successful, or one of the most successful kind of home recording businesses called the Recording Revolution. So I watched all of this stuff for a couple of years and then kind of moved on to some other things. And so I hadn't watched this stuff in a long years. And then a few years back in 2022, I saw that he had written a book, and his first book that came out was this one, How to Get Paid for What You Know, Turning Your Knowledge, Passion, and Experience into an Online Income Stream in Your Spare Time. So in the years that I had not been following him, he had sold the Recording Revolution, and he had moved on to doing business coaching and doing personal coaching. He started this personal brand. And so this first book was his very detailed, kind of granular step-by-step thing of how to succeed in online business. My favorite quote from this book is when he said, "Remember, it's not really about information as much as it is about transformation." And this book really gave you the details on like how to actually go and do this step by step by step by step. When I read this one though, it didn't hit me super hard. Like I loved it, but it was one of these books that my whole work and life experience has been knowing that I'm not supposed to do things kind of according to the norm, right? Everything that I do is kind of very different and very outside the box, and I don't easily fit into a lot of people's boxes. And so this, for me, even though I really liked it and I bought it because I wanted to support him and I found it super useful and it was something that I recommended to people a lot, it's not one that like really, really hit me. And there's a really interesting development now with his third book that just came out this year. That's kind of an update to this. So I'll talk about that when I get to the end with his latest book. But overall, this is a really solid book that gives you exact step-by-step things on how to take your knowledge and build it primarily into online courses, right? And then sell those online courses. This is really what this book is about, is how to succeed selling online courses. And it's a great option. But after I read this book, about a year after that, he released his second book, which was Rebel: Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd. This book, I start hearing the marketing and his kind of hype around this book, and I'm going, oh my gosh, find yourself by not following the crowd. And this book, really what he did was, instead of giving the very direct steps of this is how exactly you should do it, he told more of his own story, which was shocking to me to find out how similar our stories were in just kind of the themes of our life, and how, like we went into this thing, but we succeeded at this thing in a way that no one ever really does. Like nobody does it that way. And he is very similar to me in this sense of whenever I'm looking at the thing, I just go, well, I'm just going to do it the way that I feel like God's telling me to do it. And it doesn't really matter whether that's the way that, you win at it or not. I just have to be true to what I know I'm supposed to do. And so this book becomes this much deeper exploration of how do you succeed in a way that is in line with the way that you are supposed to do your work, and in a way that aligns with the identity that you have and the kind of work that you're supposed to do. So Rebel, I absolutely loved. This is a book all about how do you figure out what that identity is, and how do you look back on your life and extract the the messages that it's trying to tell you, and that you can see in the way things have worked out in the past in order to know, hey, this is what it's supposed to do in the future. And this is where I think I want to go in the future. So Rebel was this really, really awesome book about how do you plan the bigger parts of your life and especially your work in a way that actually aligns with who you are, instead of just doing the things that everybody says works and that works for everybody. Because the fact of the matter is that what success looks like for one person may not be what success is supposed to look like for you, right? So that's Rebel. Rebel, I absolutely love. I would highly recommend anybody read this book. It's very applicable. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your work is. This is a much more generalized book that I just really, really loved. My favorite quote from this one was, he said, "In order to create amazing results in our lives, we must both get clear on the outcomes we desire, while at the same time holding those outcomes loosely and focusing more on the process that will create those outcomes." This is one of the biggest takeaways from this book, is this idea that you have to look at what you want your life to be based on what are the processes that my identity can handle doing for a long amount of time, for a daily amount of time, for extended years. Because sure, there's all these outcomes that we can look at and be like, oh, I want this person's outcome, I want that person's outcome, right? But there's a massive difference between loving the idea of a thing, I love the idea of being a songwriter, versus do you actually love the work of writing songs, right? I love the idea of being a CrossFit athlete, but do you actually love the daily workouts that are actually involved in doing that, right? And so this is the book that will start to help you shape and understand what are the things that you actually innately can and do love the process of, because those are the things that are in line with identity, and those are the things that when you build your life around those, you will actually end up building a life that is flourishing and successful in all of the ways, and not just in, oh, I made a bunch of money. Right? So then that brings us to 2026. He just released this, The Effortless Business, Build a High-Income, Low-Maintenance Business and Life. This is by far my favorite of his books, because this is the book where he really talks about something that I deeply, deeply believe, which is that it is infinitely worse to succeed at the wrong thing than it is to fail at the right thing. And so as soon as you kind of let go of the, hey, this is how it's supposed to be, right? Which was kind of more of what the book one was. And you start to look at this, how did God make me? How am I supposed to do this kind of thing? Then you start to run after that. But then what will happen very quickly is that the ideas of, well, this is how it's done. So as soon as I figure out, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, you yet again start fighting these ideas of, well, this is how it's done. This is how you succeed on YouTube. This is how you're supposed to do this. This is how you're supposed to do this. This is how you're supposed to do this, right? And what he's talking about in this book is, how do you design the entirety of your business around doing things in a way that is supportive of your identity and grows your identity and can be sustained for forever, right? So his goal with this is, one of the goals that he talks about is he wants to have, I think he said 10,000 people who all are having businesses that do $1 million a year with 20 hours of work per week. And so this book is really his just complete breakdown and playbook of what is the best way to do that. The super interesting thing about this book compared to his first one, and he talks about this in his release video for it, is the first book was very big on courses, right? And it was very direct on courses, because that is 100% what was working then and he was making the majority of his income from. And then this book is kind of an overflow of this growth that he has had, where as he was growing more and more successful in that, what he started to realize is, I'm starting to fall out of this vein of, I take Fridays off all the time. I don't work weekends. I don't work nights, right? All this stuff. And he's starting to realize, okay, my businesses are not being, they're no longer being structured in a way that is supporting the entirety of the life that I want to have. So this book is entirely built on the mindset that, you can sell 10 people something that costs $1,000, or you can sell one person something that costs $10,000. Either way, you make the same amount of money, but the amount of time and energy and effort required between those two is drastically different. So this is a book that is not nearly as prescriptive as his first book was, of this is exactly what you should do. And it's much more descriptive of, here's a framework for how you should go about doing this thing and how you can take this mindset and apply it into whatever that specific identity thing that you have actually is. And then finally in this book, he was much more kind of direct towards the end of like, hey, I cannot separate the fact that I am a very hardcore Christian from how I do any of this, right? Like the reason I believe why my businesses have succeeded is because I don't believe that they're my businesses. Like I pray and ask for guidance and I ask for help, and I'm trying to submit these things to something bigger than me, to the identity that God has for me, to the plan that God has for me, and all this. And he talked about that some in Rebel. I don't remember that he really talked about it in the first one, but in this one, kind of the end of the book is his whole like, hey, like the real secret sauce of this is that your life has to be about something more than you. It can't just be about business. It can't just be about success. It has to be about something more than that. Like the only way that you actually can build this framework out properly is by asking God for insight into it, because he's the one that made you, right? And he just sums that up so well at the end of this book, where he just says, the truth of it is that it's not your business. It's God's business, right? It's his business. And so if you really want like the ultimate the ultimate kind of hack of how to do this well, you have to submit yourself and ask for guidance and wisdom from someone who knows more than you, right? My favorite quote from this book was actually an idea that, man, I read it and it just like blew my mind, because he said, in reality, time is not your most limited resource. Energy is. You always have the same amount of time every single day, but you don't always have the same amount of energy. And that like blew my mind. And that's the whole point of this book, is if energy is your most limited resource, then you should design your business and design your life in order to maximize energy. So you should do it to maximize energy generation and minimize energy outflow. Right? And so this is where he talks just so much in this book about, hey, I have built multiple 7-figure businesses, and that's cool. And that's great. Like, I love it. The money's great. It's awesome. But the bigger point to me is that I have done so with never working on Fridays. And I take Friday and that's my date day with my wife, and not working weekends and not working nights, and being able to be there for my kids, right? And being able to take days off when I need to, and all this. And it's just this much more holistic picture of the way that I can do this is by focusing on providing the maximum amount of value for the minimum amount of effort, right? And it hit me really, really hard, because it combined a lot with something that I had just done recently with launching a Substack and launching a newsletter, right? Because for the past 3 years, I have been making book notes of any good nonfiction books that I read, right? I go and I dog ear my favorite quotes. It's not going to focus, whatever. But I dog ear my favorite quotes out of the book and the stuff that I want to share with people. And then I've been importing those into just notes on my computer. And I've had these for forever, and I haven't known what to do with them. But the point of it is that because I haven't known what to do with them, I haven't done anything with them. Right? But I have kept on doing the work, because the process is complete. Like, it's not effortful for me. Like, I want to take all of the best parts of this book and put it in some place quick where I can reference it so I can remember them, because I loved this book. So I started this process that is completely sustainable, because it doesn't actually take effort and work. It gives me life to try to synthesize and collect everything, all the best parts from these books. And then I was just waiting on figuring out what to do with that thing. So finally I realized the one day I'm sitting there praying about it, and God brings me to Substack, and I'm like, this is what I'll do. I'll just start putting all those notes out on Substack for free. So I started the Substack where I have twice a week, I'm going to send you an email with all of the best stuff, with my review, and then all of the best stuff from this book, right? But the amazing thing about it is that I have over a year and a half at 2 letters a week. I have over a year and a half worth of content, and it takes me not even 10 minutes to set up all of the emails for the entire month, because I already have all the stuff done. And so one of the core ideas of this thing, of the effortless business, is that it's not, it's not he only works 20 hours, it's like, no, it's that the work that I'm putting forth is actually giving me life. And so the 20-hour thing is like, I only have to do what you would consider work, which is stuff that drains you. I'm minimizing my time doing that, and I'm maximizing my time doing the things that wouldn't normally give other people life and energy, but do give me life and energy because of the identity that God has given me, right? So I loved this one. It was so good. I read it in a day. It's pretty short, but it's absolutely power packed. And like I say, if only for that idea of realizing time is not your most limited resource, energy is your most limited resource, like game changing on that, absolute game changing, right? So that's all of them. Where should you start? If you want to read Graham, where should you start? You should 100% start with Rebel, because this is kind of the most foundational thing. This will help you if you're not very self-aware. This will help you much more in a bunch of the self-awareness stuff to kind of know and look back on your life and assess your life and be like, okay, what's God been doing in my life? This will help you realize that. And then you should move to the Effortless Business to kind of build that whole big framework and figure out, okay, what are the business things that I could be doing in this? And then if you're interested and courses are kind of your thing, check this one out. It's definitely still good, like I say, but it has the limitations that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, I will link to Graham's channel down below. I will also link to 2 of these on Amazon. The other one, you have to go directly to his website. His newest one, you can only buy direct from his website. So I'll link that as well. And then, yeah, I think that's all I got on that one. So see you in the next one.